Sure. I started the book because I had been having a lot of conversations with people who wanted to figure out whether or not to go back to school. And I kept asking them the same questions about why. And what I really wanted to have was a handbook to give them, like, here's how you do this. It's not that scary. And that didn't exist, so I wrote one. Mhm. Well, I think one of the first things that's really interesting to talk about and that came up, I did about 100 interviews, which I started thinking I would do 20, and so it became real data. One of the themes that came up quite a bit was that people don't learn in isolation, other than very, very few people who go off in a corner with some books and figure out what they're doing. People learn in social contexts, and that is, it makes the idea of an independent learner, it's a good phrase, but it's actually doesn't capture the truth of what people are doing. So, yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, there's a few of my real favorites. One is a woman named Molly Danielson in Portland, Oregon, who she wanted to start a business that she would be excited about working on, and she came to the idea. She's very passionate about the environment, so she wanted to invent ecologically appropriate sanitation, so porta potties that aren't harming the environment. And she's in Portland because it was the most eco-sanitation friendly city in the country. And she landed there knowing not so much, started doing research on policy, on science, and she got involved with, there was a small community of people that she found, and that was so helpful that she started a salon to talk about all these issues, and it was weekly, and she got people together and she spread the word. And that was one of the major ways that she learned, and she's now a recognized expert on this. What's interesting to me is that in most cases, uh, digital and in person are also interdependent. So one of the things Molly did was she was able to reach out to experts all over the world. And this is a very common theme as well, that experts are actually accessible to you. You don't have to be in college or to be a graduate student. People want to talk about what they're passionate about. So for Molly, it was a combination of reaching out to people all over the world and being able to ask them simple questions, technical questions, legal questions, and to bring that back to the group and share with them and learn what they knew about. That's a great question. And I think the first thing to say to that is that people start in all different places. So for some people, particularly people who haven't done this before, haven't learned outside of school, one of the places to start is to go find a syllabus. And the open courseware that's available is amazing for that. The videos that are available for that are less well produced than something like Coursera. You can sign on for a class in Coursera to get the basic excuse me, the basic path to follow. And the point of that is that you're someone who's looking for a path. So you do what school does, but you do it on your own. You do it with autonomy. You may find other people to do it with you. You may, for each week of the syllabus, you may reach out to a friend who has more knowledge about that than you do. But the idea is that you're learning in a very school-like pattern. For other people, and this is for many of the people who were independent learners for a long time, they get curious about something basically in the middle of it and start to branch out into, well, what do I need to know to understand this thing that I'm really curious about? And for those people, that kind of a slightly chaotic structure means it takes longer, but they feel like they get a much deeper understanding of the subject because they're understanding everywhere that it comes from. And that's another place to start, basically, is plunk in the middle of what you're interested in. Mhm. Mhm. Well, actually, the book isn't quite out yet. But yeah, it'll be out. I'm not sure when this is airing, but the book will be out in April of this year. Well, what's interesting in answer to that is that a lot of people from the Kickstarter have written to me and said, you know, I just want to get started on this and your book isn't out. Is there any advice you can give me? And so I usually, we have an email conversation and I ask them what they want to learn and why. And in some cases, it's because they want to advance in their career very specifically. And in other cases, it's curiosity. And I ask them, I generally give them a lot of advice that's, from the book, and here's how to start and find other people. And they write back to me and they say, yeah, I'm doing those things actually. And all they really need is the validation that this is a method that other people are using and that it can get them to where they want to be. I think the first filter is whether or not if you're learning because of your career, then you have to check and see if it's what's called a protected title profession, which means you have to have a license, and to take the licensing exam, you have to have a degree. So those are like medical professions where pretty much all of us wouldn't necessarily want a doctor to be treating us who had never had any experience giving a shot, for example. So if what you're doing is not a protected title profession and it's something in your career, then go ahead and get started and be aware that one of the places you're going to get the most opportunity towards jobs is going to be from the community you find. And you get that partially by being connected and partially by sharing yourself. And so if you're a useful part of the community, you're sharing and you're learning, then people are going to be much more likely to want to help you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the things about that is that there are people doing this, but we don't have good tools yet or enough good tools to help people learn together who aren't in the same place. So, one of the things about the new systems like Coursera and others that are getting a lot of publicity is that they're basically about putting teaching online and scaling up teaching. And what they need to be doing that would help this culture and help people learn independently is scaling up learning and devising systems that are about learning. So the thing I'm most excited about are small scale experiments that I've been finding and that people have been showing to me that are platforms for connecting learners to without having to be enrolled in a course. It's a simple way of, if there's a group of people who want to learn together, you have a platform for sharing and for organizing materials and stuff like that. It can also be something where people are offering to teach something they know and finding people who want to learn it. Most of the people I talked to said one of the best ways to learn and one of the ways that tells them that they've really learned something is when they can teach it. Yeah. Yeah. I think that also solves some of the problems related to questions of rigor. So, independent learning has the reputation of, well, you may not be learning everything as rigorously as you would in school, which I don't think is at all true, but you do need feedback on what you're learning. And so, being able to teach other people and sharing your information gives you a kind of feedback mechanism that you wouldn't have if you're doing it alone. Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I talk about it mostly in the context of things that are inherent in working in communities. I think that assessment is something that you have to build into your process. So assessment is part of the infrastructure that school hands to you, and if you're not finding ways to assess your knowledge on your own and with other people, then you are losing something that in some kind of magical, ideal school environment you would be getting. But it has nothing to do with tests. It has to do with competence and communication. Thank you. So nice talking with you. Thanks. Bye.